Welcome back, guys. We missed you last week, Akan. How was your weekend?
Oh, I know. It was good. It was a good weekend. Thank God, everything went well. I saw what you ladies did. It was amazing. Enjoyed the podcast, enjoyed that episode. But it's good to be back.
Yes, it's good to be back. And it's Valentine's week. Wow.
Yeah.
All
Mm-hmm.
right. So I did a post today on my page and I was asking if people were coupled up or just going solo this weekend.
Yeah.
I got an invitation for a look, I can't even pronounce
Galentine.
Gelentine. Yeah, all these made up words. Yeah,
Oh.
Gelentine event. And I was like, I don't know if I want to go to a Gelentine stay brunch, but it's not a bad idea. I think I absolutely love it. The fact that, we're
Mm-hmm.
reinventing these occasions or these events or these things
Valentine.
just to accommodate everybody.
Hmm. Interesting.
I still think though it's a commercialized data put a lot of unnecessary pressures on couples and relationship
Extremely.
that already has its strains and everything that is going on in life. To add one more realist expectation that's sometimes is so frivolous too because in some cases the person don't do anything for you for 364 days out of the year, and then this one day
Yeah.
that is really, as I said, is a commercialized day to me that just put unwarranted strain on relationship and expectation on people. And then for the people that may not be in a healthy space and a
Hmm.
healthy relationship, then those people starts to feel anxiety and loneliness and all of those things. Personally, I am not fond of it. I don't think it's something that should be pushed or forced or stressed. But yeah, I am not going to try to push my own beliefs, perspective on anyone. But Dr. OJ brought it up, so I just had to say my
And
piece.
with that wonderful opening, guys, welcome to the Singles Connect Community Podcast. We're super excited. We're not really dogging on the Valentine's Day thing. We are all for love on this podcast. And we're super excited to be here this Valentine's week, sharing another amazing topic with you guys. I'm so happy to be back with my co-host. And we're here to share insight. Of course, remember, do the needful if you're watching us on YouTube. Subscribe. It's free and it helps our platform grow and it helps our message reach so many more people who want a healthy, wholesome environment to talk about relationship issues. Do the needful, subscribe, turn your notifications on Instagram, follow us on Singles Connect Community Podcast. And of course, we would love to hear your feedback on every episode. Let us know what you think. Let us know your thoughts. Like, comment, share. But also, you have the opportunity to let us know what topics you would like us to share. So, guys, today what are we talking about today? Are we talking about Valentine's or I know we have a whole nother topic?
No, we're not talking about Valentine's Day. That is definitely not what we're talking about. We're
Okay.
actually diving into soul ties.
Mm,
And I think for those of you that are new to our channel, again, welcome to the Connect community, as Dr. OJ just introduced us, where we try to create a safe environment for our singles community. And even if you're in a relationship, we're all here learning and we're all on our healing journey together. We're here as people that are comfortable in our own skin, that are living fulfilling single life, and we are just trying to share with you what we are learning along the journey. So if you have been paying attention, we are trying to keep the topics cohesive, where we're not all over the place. So if you have been listening since January until now, you will realize that everything is connected in one way or the other. So tonight we're diving into soul ties. Last week we discussed what did we talk about again, Dr. OJ?
one night stand.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and then today we're talking about soul ties. So you see, it all connects.
Yeah.
So I don't know who wants to go first on this topic. I know some of our opinion may differ, but we create space for everyone to have their own thought, their own perspective, and we know people's opinion are also based upon
Hmm.
environment, culture, how their upbringing, their lived experience. So there's a free judgment zone here.
Yeah. I love the fact that we're talking about soul ties this week because last week talking about one night stand, I think one of the byproducts or the symptoms of people who engage in that lifestyle is a very, very, they're going to be easily predisposed to exposing themselves, not just, we talked about the physical, the physiological, but talking about soul ties, we can actually double back and say, if you're just engaged in just, doing the smash and pass and all of that one night stand lifestyle, soul ties are some things that, or is a phenomenon or a thing that you're going to have to deal with, because people often assume that you can just sleep with someone once and be done with it. They leave a part of themselves in you. I mean, and this is just, it's not, you don't even have to really believe what we're saying. But a lot of people who engage in that lifestyle would attest to the fact that they're more predisposed to depression, their mindsets, they have a lot of things going on. It's just that it's just something about when you expose yourself sexually to someone that opens you up in a way that you might not be aware. And I think ignorance is not an excuse for you being excluded from the effects of soul ties and the negative impact that it could have on you as a person. Just because you claim you don't know, it's never been an excuse. Like they say, even in the law, right? Ignorance is not an excuse for breaking the law. When you break the law, whether you're aware or not, you pay the price and you kind of, live with the consequences of it. So, yeah, I'm really interested in hearing what we all have to share tonight. I strongly believe in soul ties. Even for me as an adult, living as responsibly as I can, I have found myself in situations where I feel like I could have done better, and I really did not need to expose myself in that manner to some certain people, right? And it takes me, I take the whole process of trying to spiritually sort of cleanse myself. I found myself doing that from time to time. And I know that this could be a very debatable or controversial topic talking about it, but it exists, right? So yeah, I don't know. I can. What are your thoughts on the issue of soul ties?
Well, soul ties is, I mean, you already gave the definition of what it is. Sometimes soul ties also is not limited to just, when you get sexual with somebody. Sometimes it could actually still be in a friendship. And I think for me, sometimes it's more, I'm also concerned about like having unknown soul ties to someone. Sometimes when it's not intentional, because sometimes it can be intentional and you're close to someone and you're exchanging energy, and and then it happens. But there's sometimes it can happen and you don't know. But it's still based on what you've done, but you just don't know that your actions are, uh,
Hmm.
So even though we're talking about soul ties, I think I'm also interested in the sort of things that you might do that may have you attract the wrong type of energy that may eventually have you hooked on like a soul type, what you don't want. But to your point, it's still, I think, we need to be intentional with the people we mix with or the things that we do in life, because when you talk about soul ties, you're talking about your mind, you're talking about your things that affect your inner energy. How do they call it, the vibration that you carry. So and sometimes too, I also think that there's when it comes to soul ties too, when sometimes people think, when you get involved with someone, it's like when you left the person, it's over and done with, right? Sometimes you have to also be intentional about cutting a certain type of relationship or person away, to just be able to like help yourself feel renewed. And so that's just like my some of the things when it comes to soul ties. These are some of the things that I think about, and I'll let Stacy continue from there.
Thank you, Akan. I'm glad you brought that up because when I first thought of the topic, and I know you and I briefly kind of discussed it, I'm glad you brought up the fact that or that people I think some people may be aware, but some people may be a little bit shocked to know that soul ties is not just tied to like a sexual encounter you have with someone. As I kind of touched on it, and I'm going to read a definition for you guys to explain exactly what it is that we are talking about here. That is not just limited to a sexual encounter that you have with an individual. It also can be you attach yourself to someone where you start to romanticize or you're starting to fantasize even in a platonic friendship,
Hmm.
even if that person is not reciprocating the feelings that you have or the thoughts that are coming to you. So one of the definitions that I come across that I thought was very interesting when it comes to soul tie is that they say a soul tie is characterized by a strong feeling of familiarity, understanding, and sometimes even a sense of destiny with another person. Just like what we're saying here, that it can be too, you form an attachment to someone that you have not even have any sexual encounter with.
Mhm.
In your mind, somehow, maybe a simple gesture or a kindness or compassion towards you, or anything of that nature where somebody actually sees you, you then internalize that into start feeling that, oh, this is the person for me. This person is my future spouse or significant other. And then you start to develop these unhealthy emotional feelings towards this person, anticipation, habits, fantasy, and things that even the person that has not reciprocated towards you, or to say, I also share these same feelings. So
Mhm.
it's to me, it's deeper than just the sexual part. Yes, the sexual part intensifies it. The sexual part makes it even more difficult sometimes for you to even walk away from unhealthy or toxic relationship or abusive relationship, or even if the relationship ends years later on or further down the line, you're still thinking about this person, you're still having dreams regarding this person, you're still anticipating a future with this person. And that's when it becomes very I guess difficult, or as the and I wouldn't think it's would you guys say it's a Christian terminology, or that's just the known consensus terminology across the board, where it's considered to be a soul tie because you're now entangled with this person beyond like the natural sense.
I think it's well, it's highly discussed in the Christian space, but it's not. I don't think it's a Christian phenomenon. It's not peculiar to Christians, but of course Christians kind of highlight these issues a whole lot more, and we talk about it. But you also hear it discussed in other spiritual spaces where people who practice other religions, who practice certain types of spirituality, it might not necessarily be Christianity. They
Mhm.
talk about soul ties. When you pay attention to discussions in those spaces where then even the new age religion people who are always talking about different practices and things like that, they're very particular about those things and understanding how the spiritual space works. And I, of course, they might draw reference from maybe Christian references and things like that, but definitely being able to adapt it to their own way of spiritual practice. So it's not. But I like the fact that we're discussing it outside of sex, because it's important for people to know that when we talk about soul ties, it's just, for me, breaking it down in my psychological head is just developing unhealthy, unwholesome attachments to someone, either
Mm-hmm.
consciously or unconsciously. And we all do, because there's some people that you've never had a sexual encounter with, but just by interacting with them. And a lot of times, our interaction is even one sided. Do you know that? Do you know those interactions that are so one sided that you've told yourself this narrative about someone that you think or you fantasize about them being something that they're actually not on their end? They have no clue what's going on with you, and you have developed such a strong attachment. You have created this whole other life with them. You have seen them in these spaces that they don't even have an idea, and you're over here struggling with it. And that is where we see certain people who are fixated. They have fixations. A friend of mine who is, like a city council member was telling me that he actually had a stalker. And this lady had been telling people about how she was going to be the wife of the councilman. She was going to marry this man. And he had no idea that she was doing all of these things. Now, fast forward, she started acting on those stories that she was telling. She was stalking him, and one day she shows up at his house. How she found his address? Okay, well, he's a public servant, so obviously, maybe she figured out a way to find his address, which I feel is public safety when, because you're serving the community, everybody knows everything about your business. And she found his
Yeah.
address and
Mm-hmm.
went to his house and was like knocking on his door and banging on his door. And even though she's female and of course he's a man, He was like, I was so scared out of my skin. I did not know what to do. Of course, the police was involved and a restraining order and several things were involved, and things are a bit better now. But that is crazy. That woman had probably developed, I could say, maybe a soul tie to this guy because she had fixated so
Hmm.
much on him. She had created a whole life and she was living a reality that was unique to her. Nobody else was involved in that reality. So yeah, it's a thing. It's crazy, but
Yeah, you're
It's
right.
ironic that you said that because literally, I was just having the same conversation with Akan.
Yeah,
What was it? Maybe 2 days ago. It's very ironic, and that's the same scenario that I painted to him of a story that I was listening to, and to realize that this woman gave up 8 years of her life because of, yeah, 8 years of her life. Follow this man across state. She moved to an entirely different state. At some point, she was even homeless, living out of someone dorm's room, feeding, living off people far less than her age, because she saw him preach a sermon, and somehow in her mind, she thought that this person was supposed to be her husband. And she watched him even get married during those 8 years process when she hit rock bottom. And even while he was married, she was still trusting God and saying that she knows what God told her, that this was her husband. But now she's in a space where she is healed, and she realized it wasn't God's voice she was hearing. Sometimes you can be so convinced of something that you tell yourself that this is God when it's even not God. So yeah, so go ahead, Akan. I think you wanted to say something, but I just had to say it's just so ironic that with Dr. OJ telling the story, it's the same explanation that I was saying to you, that people don't understand that soul
yeah,
ties is not just limited to sexual encounter or to people
mhm,
that you engage in sexual relationship with. It is also when you too adopt your own romanticize feelings or towards somebody, and somehow you make up this whole life that doesn't exist, and this person is not even checking for you or even reciprocating the same feelings that you have, or even showing an interest in you at
yeah.
all, or encouraged it.
Right. And, just to sort of go take us on a, just a little context in based on what both of you have spoken about. I think for me, what I've picked from that is the idea of awareness. Self-awareness is very important, and I think, this is important why you're supposed to be so, like, for example, with Dr. OJ's example, on the lady side, the self-awareness to be able to understand what is going on within you at the time, because sometimes you being able to embrace an idea or some thought, so for example, that this person is going to be your husband, might also be an indication of what is going on in your life at the time. It might be an insecurity, it might be an idea, it might be a fantasy. To be able to be aware that that's going on and understand and assess and not fall, and then on the man's part, you as a person too, because I've been in situations where I may have given up vibes to people that thought that, okay, this you were feeling me or whatever, and I've had conversations with someone like, no, but we're talking the whole time. I thought you knew. You just wanted to know. So, but then what I learned from that was you need to be aware as well while you're interacting with people, to be cognizant of the fact that whatever you're giving up may come as normal for you, but some people might take it differently. So I just say that self-awareness is very important, and it's not something that might come naturally, but I encourage people to constantly learn to actually be able to be still from time to time, and assess what is going on with you as
mhm,
a person. Because even taking it further, not just like, you can actually be you can actually be like, you can actually embrace an idea
yeah,
unknowingly. You can actually embrace an idea unknowingly. And so, for example, if you can be in, so it allows you to know you don't need to go to like a gathering. Say you wanted to be with you wanted to be with people, and they're talking about something that doesn't concern you. Your awareness should allow you to know not to be like a part of that conversation, so you don't start embracing the ideas that comes with that, or someone who is associated with that. So I just wanted to touch on that, and um, just talk about like self-awareness when it comes to soul ties.
So are you then saying then, that I guess both men and women need to be caution, or practice caution while you're engaging with, say, I guess, strangers in public spaces in terms of your interaction. Like, how much attention do you give to the opposite sex? Be careful with your body language. Be careful, if, say, you are a touchy feely type of person, with how much affection you're giving off, or how much engagement you're showing towards another person, because someone may perceive that or take it in the wrong way, or read it in the wrong sense or the wrong tone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, Dr. OJ, you can go.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right because at the end of the day, right? Think about it this way. We are humans and yeah, we have this physical exterior, but if we once you become I think once you become fully aware and you know certain things, you cannot unknow them. And for me, even in my personal development journey, mindset development, I understand fully well that every single aspect of my being has an implication on how everything turns out on my life as a whole. So that goes to say that the words that I speak, the things that I hear, and the people that I'm interacting with, the energy that they carry. There's certain people now that I'm so self-aware that there's certain people they call my phone. As soon as I see their name pop up, I don't want to answer because I already know that everything that's going to come from that conversation is going to leave me not better than I am, or the state I is going to throw me off where I am. And then if I'm feeling bad or if I'm not really feeling good about myself, I'm also learning to be so self-aware to be able to sort of talk myself out of that state of being rather than seeking external sort of validation. Yeah, there are moments when those are necessary, but not as I find out I don't need those as often as I used to need them before because I'm at a level of self awareness that I know that there's certain things that I have a system created within my being to navigate my way, knowing how to raise my energy, raise my vibration, switch my thinking, talk myself out of certain thought processes and things like that. So, yes, having people in your space, I think it's so true. And of course, that self awareness is part of everyone being able to develop their emotional intelligence. Unfortunately, that is not a work that a lot of people invest in doing. So we just rather just kind of roll with emotions and go with the tide. So everything that comes sweeps in, and it's easy for us to get moved in all directions. So beyond even being sexually active or sexually engaged in people, a lot of people are picking up all of these connections to the soul, and they're wondering like, why is I'm around this group of friends, why do I always feel like this? And that's where the question stops. I wonder why I just feel so bad, I just feel so down on myself. But that's where that stops for most people. They don't go further to figure out like, I wonder if it's just going down that rabbit hole to kind of backtrack and track and see how can I really explain how I'm feeling, because that's self-awareness, being able to understand how your emotions are guiding you at every time and being able to explain that and manage that properly,
Hmm.
whereby it's you get better and better. But anyway, I want to hear your feedback on that.
Yeah, you're right, Dr. OJ. So what self-awareness does for you is self-awareness allows you to being intentional about being self-aware allows you to be intentional. You automatically become intentional. You become
Mhm.
intentional about spotting things that are not beneficial to you. One of my mentors is to say, whatever you do, what is the economic benefit and what is the benefit to other parts of my life, spiritual benefit and anything. So in the case of like soul ties, we've talked about how bad it is, right? Or we talk about how bad it is when you're tied to the wrong thing, or when it's not nice, and we can still talk about more about that. But then there's also the idea of like how do you avoid not even getting tangled into, because I know a lot of times we're talking more about sex, but uh, so for example, as a person being intentional and being self-aware, you get invited to a swingers party or invited to a strip club, right? As a person, as somebody who is, I think, and I believe as someone who is self-aware, who's probably trying to get married, as a single man, knowing that that environment can actually give you other ideas to being with the type of crowd that is not where you're heading to. It's being self-aware can allow you to avoid and say, hey, listen, I'm not going to be able to come in that kind of gathering, because here's the thing, you might actually go to that place and not do anything that night. But the ideas that you picked up from that environment can affect you tomorrow, and your brain can match something else, and you can meet the wrong person. Because now what I'm learning, which is what I learned about the brain, is that when you do things which I didn't know about this, someone was educating me on it yesterday, is that your brain actually doesn't know how to make a difference between what. So if you say to someone, I hate you, or I hate someone, your brain takes it as I hate myself. So basically, the reason why you want to do things and you want to be intentional is because when the brain takes it in, the body is sort of like teaching itself. And so that's my idea of like being self-aware. Like, it's like you don't want to, you're able to spot the things that will send you in the wrong direction. And that's what I'm saying. Like, some people unconsciously meet people, right? And for example, it might have been a lady. Maybe you were not used to meeting people who were like playboys or whatever, but because you sat down and you're always listening to conversations of women talking about how they were hanging out with playboys and they took them, and then one day you might just get approached by a playboy, and all of a sudden you're seeing yourself, sort of like going used to the idea. So this is why you have to be really intentional about what you're taking in and intentional about what you move. And then when you do see something that you feel like doesn't go in your direction, you need to cut that off intentionally. So that's sort of like another angle that I wanted to share.
I love what you just shared because it's so interesting that you said that. I was at an event 2 weeks ago, and then as we were discussing, of course, for me, I was just at an event I was invited to, but then the discussion went into a certain lifestyle, and which honestly, sometimes I just feel like, as exposed and educated as I am, I'm extremely naive. And my naivety shows up when I find out things like everybody already knows, and I'm like, what? This is a thing? So I was there and they were talking about certain things. There was another event that was coming up. They're like, oh, I want you all to come out and just hang out with us. And I was looking at the videos and it was like, and everyone was like, oh, that's so cool. And I'm like, really? This looks like those kinds of things that you see in these really weird, like X-rated videos,
Mm.
like people with weird lifestyle, and everyone was very, very chill and normal about it. But I had never seen that that was a thing that people did, and it was a party. And I'm like, oh wow, but I had to really catch myself so they don't think, oh, like,
Yeah,
that thing, man. And then you suddenly don't want to make everyone around you uncomfortable, like. So I
yeah,
was like, oh, that's interesting. I was like, oh, they was like, Doctor, you're gonna come. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna come. But I'm like, hell to the no, I am not coming to that. There's no way I'm going to expose myself to that.
mm,
Not that I have judgment about it because that's what they do and they like. It's okay. But for me, like you said, I can. There's something I want for myself. A friend of mine said something one
yeah,
day, and I was like, dude, I keep telling you to introduce me to people. Like, you have all these guys, blah, blah. He said, OJ, you want to get married. I know that's what you want to do. So there is no way in hell I'm introducing you to any of these people I know because that's.
exactly.
And he said that's not what they want. And I was like, it's like, you know me. So I said, I know you and I care about you and I know that that's what you want. So it's not like I'm not looking out for you. But it made me, I was sad, of course, because it's like, oh, damn, like, when am I going to meet someone? But then I was happy because I'm like, the fact that this person actually knows me,
Yeah,
because then you really want to be able to turn around and assume that people know what you stand for, because you want to feel like people around you, they interact with you long enough, they know that this person, this is what they stand for, whereby you're not sending mixed signals, because everywhere you go you're picking up this. Everywhere they're smoking, you're picking it up, you're blending in like you smoke. If they're doing this, you're blending in like you do it. If they and I'm around those people and they do all these are my I have all kinds of friends, by the way, and I'm around them a lot and they do all kinds of things and I'm very comfortable around them. But it was very reassuring and settling for me that my energy was so strong and my convictions and my self-awareness was so apparent that they know that this person, this is who they are. So
yeah,
regardless of the fact that she's around us, she's with us, she's our friend, we know that she's not like. Do you
hmm,
understand what I'm saying? She hasn't allowed that to dilute her integrity. And I think that's something where just being able to be guarded, because it's easy for someone to pick up soul ties from those types of environments as well, and
yeah,
just pick up those character traits. But yeah, it's a lot of work. It's really hard, but it's a lot of work.
hmm,
So
yeah,
it's It's interesting that you guys both touch on, I guess, being also self-aware and cognizant of the places that or environment that you choose to enter into or interact, or the crowd or type of people you choose to interact in, because you can then take on the persona of that lifestyle or
Mhm.
adopt it. May awaken thoughts and feelings
Yeah.
inside of you that sometimes is not so healthy. So there is I was so since guys we have already discussed, for anyone that is listening to us, we have discussed the side effects of soul ties. We have also touched on the topics that soul ties is not just regulated to sexual encounters that you may have with
Mhm.
someone of the opposite sex. It can be from someone that you just merely was polite to you, someone that was kind towards you, that paid you a compliment, and somehow you perceive that to mean something else, and starting to develop feelings or affection towards this person that was not invited or is not even reciprocated. So, what do you guys think about the fact that there are also healthy soul ties too? So that way I guess that we can try to cover all bases, because there are healthy soul ties, and the healthy type of soul ties that I'm referring to is soul ties that you have with your spouse. Say you're in a healthy
Mhm.
relationship, or your fiance, or um, an intentional relationship, purposeful relationship you're having with the intention to marry. Those are some healthy soul ties that you can develop with that person, where you feel connected to that person, to the in a sense, as if the person pick up the phone and say, hey, Dr. OJ, how you doing today, baby? How is it going? He can tell or detect just from the tone of your voice that
Mhm.
something is off,
Yeah.
something is wrong. You know, my baby head is not in the right frame of mind.
Yes.
Like those to me are good and healthy soul ties when you're in those healthy relationship, where this is two people that are engaged in a relationship, not where you are all fantasizing about something that nobody knows
Mhm.
anything about
Mm.
in your own world.
Mhm.
So what do you guys think about those? Because I think we often hear so much about soul ties from the negative standpoint.
Negative.
We
Yes.
never hear about the soul ties that are actually healthy and that are is good to have when you're so connected to your person, you're so
Mhm.
aware of the other person and in consideration with the other person's thoughts, moods and stuff like that, where you don't miss anything. And those are that's good that we never hear about those things enough.
It's amazing that you say that because I think the topic of soul ties, I don't know how it originated or how it came about because I don't see anywhere in the Bible where it's discussed or highlighted as a thing. But I think it came about when people started talking about soulmates, and the
Hmm.
soulmate phenomenon, of course, is where people have this ideology about being able to meet that person who was created for you, like that one person. The idea of Eve taken out of Adam's ribs, and so that is the bone of your bone, the flesh of your flesh. So soulmates, soul ties, which of course, one thing I've found is when we look at the spiritual realm, anything that is supposed to be good that God gives us as good, because talking about the issue of soulmates is really people being aware of the fact that there is somebody that God makes for you that can connect so much to your soul that is your own person, and the enemy is definitely going to take it and twist it around so that way we now start to focus on how bad it is as opposed to what Stacy's talking about. Focus on how good it is and focusing on the good side of things. I was listening to a podcast yesterday and was talking about identifying and meeting someone who is so in tune with you, whereby just like you described, just by hearing your voice they can discern, like, are you okay, are you happy, even when you're
Hmm.
trying to fake it. That person is so in tune with you. They know everything about you, whether they're with you or sometimes they're even away from you. They get a sixth sense, or about if something happens to you, they get that sixth sense within them that this person is not okay. Let me just call. That is a strong soul connection that we are all hoping and praying that by the time we get married, no, I'm just being honest. We're all hoping and praying that by the time we get married and you don't miss it in that connection, that you have that. That is the standard. that God has for us. And that's why, with God, that is his intention, for him to put people together and merge their souls. And of course, those two souls merged together, connected with him in covenant,
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
that's really what it needs to look like. That is the picture perfect ideal relationship that we need to have. Because for me, that would be the ideal, where we're so intertwined and connected, like, you know we can't miss a bit. Like, that's the ideal, honestly. So it's a good thing. I love it.
It's interesting you said that, brought that up, Dr. OJ, about the origin of it. So I actually had looked that up because I wanted to see, and there is a scriptural reference. So based on what I found, is soul ties, yes, originated from religious beliefs, and it doesn't matter from what I was able to read up on. It doesn't matter what religion you come from. Every religious belief or customs or practice believe in some way, shape, or form about soul ties. But the scripture that it actually talks about in the Bible, that it said come closest, that actually talked about soul ties, was First Samuel 18. And the scripture says, it comes to pass when he had made an end of speaking unto Saul, and that the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. So for you guys who want to go and do your own research and dive into it, that was the only scripture in the Bible, or from everything that I researched, that actually talked about or mentioning the soul of two people being tied together.
Hmm.
And I guess it goes back to what you were discussing about when you become one with someone, or when, I guess, in a sense is that way, because the Jonathan and Saul journey and David was tied together. That's in some way even their soul was connected because of the purpose that God had on their life and the mission that they were supposed to accomplish in the earth at that point.
Yeah.
So
You want to go, Dr. OJ? Yeah, sure. Okay, let me go. So I was just saying that, yeah, so that make the scripture you read is definitely an example of soul ties. And I think in the when looking at soul ties from a positive perspective, definitely, you definitely, it's something that you want to encourage with your partner, because it's the two souls coming together as one. And if you think about it, let's look at our like immediate family. The nuclear family is like, you really have soul ties with most of your family, right? And that starts from the parents, where you're close and you sort of know when there's something wrong with your sibling, or there's something wrong with with your mom, or and that's why it hurts so bad, when something bad happens to them, that you can sort of sense it, when something is not going on. And so it's, but then the beginning of that is the coming together of the man and the wife, right? And then that's now extended to the kids. So yeah, definitely something you want to be intentional about. And again, I still bring up self-awareness, because it doesn't come naturally. Even as much as you can feel it, as much as you can want it, you have to be intentional about it, because you have to actually walk towards it, to making sure that you have a soul tie with the person who understands you and is willing to understand you more, and who actually is able to infuse with your purpose. Because remember, as human beings, the most important thing for all of us is our purpose. And I think a lot of people, grow apart because at some point they don't support each other's purpose. So someone who's able to understand your purpose and is able to say, hey, listen, this is why I can infuse my purpose with yours, and y'all are able to build together and move together and really feed off of each other's souls and become interdependent. So yeah, absolutely. Soul ties in the positive light, that would be something that I highly encourage. And you also get to that place when you're intentional, you're able to reconcile and like really know, okay, this is the direction I want to go, this is the person that shares these characteristics, this is the person that's in tune with me. So that's what I wanted to say about that.
So I have a question for you both. So now, when people, we've talked about all the different areas of it, but I want us to address this tonight, to talk about, okay, when people have found themselves in situations where they have been, I guess that's what the Bible talks about, equally yoked, they have found themselves kind of torn and connected in ways that they would ideally not want to or should not be. How do we go about breaking these connections and soul ties? I mean, if even if it's just a mind connection, how does one, what are some of the steps that we can take, or at least we can share with our community, for those who have found themselves or who are finding themselves in these spaces? How do they break those soul ties and begin to find a healthy, wholesome path to recovery, to, because when you're tied to someone, that's a piece of yourself that's connected. So now getting that back and being whole again, because one of the journeys to having a healthy relationship is healing. Of course, we advocate that very much, but it's being whole. A lot of people are fragmented and broken apart and trying to make connections with new people. Meanwhile, a really good portion of them is still connected to someone somewhere that they haven't really, I don't want to say retrieved, but I think that's the word, that they haven't retrieved and put back together, whereby they're now fully able to immerse themselves in these new relationships. Because we have men who have, what do they call it, they have commitment issues. Those, they have these existing trauma from somewhere. Those are soul ties, because people can develop soul ties to trauma, to hurt, to I can't mention the fact that once you register certain types of negative energy, negative emotions, hatred, those are things that tear away at the soul, and you're connected to all of these things. Now you're finding good people coming into your life, but unfortunately, some way, somehow, there's sabotage coming because you're not able to fully immerse yourself in a healthy, wholesome way to these people without developing interdependency. I don't know. So now, yeah, again, so we'll talk about that. That's question one. Question two is, how do you draw the line between soul ties, just having a positive soul tie with someone, or developing an interdependent codependency mindset? Because I think there's a thin line between those two. Anyway, let's have it in.
Um, well, I think from what I've read and what I've heard, and this may be more on the spectrum or the realm of the biblical side of it, guys. So they talk about, or what I heard that was being discussed is that in order to break soul ties, you have to first repent, renounce, and then replace it with something else. And what you're encouraged to replace it with is more so the love of God, with love for yourself, with healing, with purpose, with fulfillment. But those were the steps that I here most of the times in ways than for you to actually break and come from underneath that. I've sat in service too where it was preached about, and what the pastor had instructed everyone to do is that if you feel that or think you may have a soul tie with someone that you need to let go of, they ask you to write that person's name down. And then you were supposed to, I think, tear it up or something. I can't remember, but I think you were supposed to tear the name up, and or they ask you to drop it in the, they had sent the offering basket around or something, and you dropped it in the basket and they took it to the altar. I can't remember exactly what the instructions were, but I do remember that writing down the name was one of the instructions that they gave. And then he prayed over it, and for all the people for healing, and I guess for some type of release from that, or that hole that was on you. So those are the two things, or the two ways, examples that I can give that I've experienced, and that I actually listening on a conversation where it was coming more from the spiritual perspective. Guys, I'm sorry, I can't offer you any secular way of, where some people may say go to the obia person is what we call it in our islands, or the whatnot, to go light a candle or something like that. I don't know, I can't offer you that. Only person I know is Jesus, so I can only tell you from the biblical sense what I've heard and what I people have said have worked for them. And then, as I said, it's you repent, you renounce, and then you replace it. But you replace it with something positive. You replace that with whether it's love for yourself, purpose, wholeness, healing, whatever it is that you need to do to get over it. And guess, and then that's the to answer the first part of Dr. OJ question, and then the second part, I believe you were asking now, then how do you heal from it?
Yeah, just finding a balance. Now you're trying to get into a healthy space. Now, how do people create a healthy boundary around developing a positive soul connection with your significant person? Because now, when you cited the example of David and Jonathan, it's apparent
Mm-hmm.
that we can have soul ties to our friends. These are people
Yeah.
that are intimate with us. They're our people.
Right.
How do we now draw the line of having those soul ties, yes, connected to them, but we're also not crossing over to codependency, extreme dependency on people?
Well, I think that's where the self-awareness comes in, and being self-aware enough and knowing what is healthy for you, what your triggers are, and the things that are maybe coming from a place of trauma,
Mm.
or a place of something, a learned behavior that is not necessarily healthy.
Okay.
So you really, really, and I cannot emphasize this enough. I know I can't always allude to it about to the scripture says, "To thyself be true." There, which goes to me in the form of being self-aware. You really, really have to know yourself in order for you to know exactly how to navigate to meet this world and what it is that you're getting into, and know yourself at all stage, because the reality of it is we all evolve, well, hopefully we all should be evolving, and we all should be growing and changing as different stages of our life, or as we take on different responsibility and life changes, whether it's in your singlehood, whether it's in your divorcee stage, whether it's in your being a parent, whether it's in you being an uncle or an aunt, or it doesn't matter. You have to show up to be who you need to be in those stages at that moment for whatever that reason is. So you have to also know your limitation, you have to know your boundaries, you have to know the capacity that you have to hold space for whatever that moment or this period in your life is calling for, and know when to say, okay, this is something I can do and this is something I cannot do, because I fear if I go this further, then I am on a thin line of maybe the brink of disruption or destruction. So it's really about you knowing yourself, and if you need to take time to figure out who you are and figure out exactly what makes you tick, and you need to be and what you're trying to become, then I say take all the time that you need before you dive into whether it's business, relationships, whatever aspect of it is, because even though sometimes in different things too you can also discover who you are, but at the same time I think you have to go into it at least knowing a little bit about yourself, enough to know what is it that you're getting yourself into.
That's true. I love that. I love that. I can. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, I like what Stacy said, but it's. I'm just gonna like sort of like break it down a little more. For me, I'm a very practical person. Like I said, self awareness is very important, and
Mhm.
with everything in life, I am a big advocate of intentionality. You have to be intentional. I think no matter how bad things look, no matter how unaware or naive you are, the way the human mind is built, it always gives you a spot or a space to be able to say, hey, listen, is this thing right or is this thing wrong? And for you to make that choice. So I'm a practical person. Um, if it comes to being involved with someone, what do the results show from this relationship you're having with this person? And now we're talking about someone who is actively involved with someone with the wrong soul ties. What does this relationship show? Does this casual relationship, how is this impacting my life? Is this a
Mhm.
good thing? You know, what's going on? What is it? How does it make me feel? Is it creating anything positive? The results will show you that. And if it's not practically, you have to start saying, listen, I need to cut this off,
Yeah.
and you need to find a way to cut that off. If it's an idea and you had an idea somewhere, you mistakenly or you were ran into a conversation that you were not supposed to run into, and something felt cool to a couple of people, but it came to you, and you need to tell yourself, okay, like why am I feeling this way? Is it because of this thing that I heard? You need to say, listen, sometimes even with me, I will even shout out loud. I'll be like, no, I'm not listening to this again, or you are not for me. I'm very practical, cut that off. And that's where self awareness comes in. And, when you talked about like codependence and interdependence, you need to really sit down and assess if your relationship with someone or something, what are the give and takes of it? If it's like, okay, listen, if you need to delete that number from your phone, because I know I had a situation where there was somebody that I had,
That I've done.
yes, I mistakenly dialed them, and they sent me a message, and I didn't know I dialed. It's like, oh hey, like you dial. I'm like, me dialed you, and it was like, no, I was like, yo, it's probably like a bot dial or something. But I went back in, I blocked it totally, I deleted the number. You know what I mean? So because I don't even want that to happen, so you need to be. I feel like people need to be practical, take control of the control that needs to be taken off of your life, because the truth is that you hold the power to everything. But like I said, sometimes you can run into these things unintentionally, and it's that self-awareness allows you to recognize when something is not going a certain type of way, and you have to actively make change. Everything has to go with action. Yeah, action is, I mean, if you know me, my name is man of action, so like you have to put action into it, like literally, to be able to move. And then let's also talk about the fact that not everyone is. So I think we all grow, because even with this self awareness we talk about, this is something that is built. Because one of the bad things that happens to you, or the, I'll say, the detriments of having osota, maybe an after effect, is that it's found like a lot of it has to do with a degradation of your self esteem, and that can be a backlash of like having a bad soul tie with somebody, say from a relationship where there was abuse and all of these things going on. So same thing I say, like, if you feel like you do not have the power to be this self-aware, or you're not at a place where your mind is that strong to be able to move and just take control, identify that you have a problem and get help. Get help from friends, get help from people who have done it, get help from people who advocate for it. Now there are podcasts everywhere, there's people talking about these things. Get help from people. Therapy is also very important. And I wanted to even go deeper on this soul ties thing, because now it's like the culture is also against it. Like, for example, like I'll tell you, like, if you go on IG now, it's like the things that are coming on the feeds, you don't have control over. These things your mind is picking up. Your mind is picking up on these things. So you have to be able to be intentional to really like focus your mind, find a way to avoid all these things. These are things that can lead you, because like I said, sometimes you run into things because they've unconsciously been registered in your mind,
Yes.
and you now identify with it. So you know, hearing conversations like this, really thinking about them, troubleshooting, and really like implementing them in your life is very important. So this is what I would advise. That's what I would do.
I absolutely love it, guys. Thank you so much. That was, I mean, you guys definitely did justice to those questions. And I think we're about the top of the hour. We begin to round up this conversation. I love this. I think this is a topic that deserves 2 episodes. Just saying,
Mm,
we don't have to, but I think in order to do justice to it, yes, to serve
yeah.
our community, we need to kind of do a part 2 and break down certain things. Because, as Akan was talking, and I was like, oh my God, this is some of the stuff. Like, it's like, for those of you who trade in the open market, stock market, money market, there's something they call stop loss. It's like you put in something that, like, once you start going down, at some point, just make sure, whether I'm aware or not, just stop it and get me out of that trade. And that is some of the things that we have to do. Like Akan said, we have to be very mindful, very aware. Soul ties are things that sometimes we pick them up consciously or even unconsciously. And the world is so fragile now, where everyone is vulnerable.
Hmm.
Everyone is vulnerable and open. Like, there's something I've been waiting to share with you guys. I saw them when I was gonna share on my feed, but this is a post on social media. Rihanna said, "I regret opening up to some people. They didn't deserve to know me like that." It's very real. Like we've all been there, done that, no matter how smart. Like even Rihanna in her boss season now, where she's the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar industry. She was doing an interview one time, and they asked her that what are some of the things that she would tell old Rihanna, or she feels like, or she would had preferred that old Rihanna did not ever do. Where she, getting her where she said that there are a lot of clothes that she wore back then, being bad girl Riri, that now in her season of sitting on this empire, sitting in boardrooms with serious minded people, she wishes that she never ever dressed like that. She was never identified as that person. Even though, of course, having that platform propelled her to doing the things that she's doing today. So, soul ties have an impact on all of us, either for good or for bad. We definitely want to focus on the good, but even in the bad things, honestly, we're all a work in progress. And that's why we all come on here and we share our vulnerability. I can't say deleting numbers. Trust me, I have, because it was just that one. I'm serious. Like, I had to. I literally deleted the number. And I was like, no, because I realized that when I have good days and I feel like I'm over, I'm good, I'm getting over, I'm moving on. And then there are just those days where you're like, I just want to call, or you just feel like you have something to say that you really should not be saying. And then, so I was like, no, 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 what's the best approach? Delete that number, get
Mhm.
it off, just never ever. And then once that person would reach out and I would delete the messages, I would delete the call, just making sure that I don't keep that residue, because keeping that on your device is just leaving residue of things that you're trying to purge yourselves of when it comes to soul ties. My sister talked about the fact that we pray, we renounce, we denounce, we repent and all that. But even in doing that, you have to take actionable steps. There are
Hmm.
certain things you have to do. Is like, yeah, you're praying and you're praying for protection, but you're not going to leave your front door open for the thieves to walk right in. You're going to at least put some security in place to ensure that your things are protected, even though you're praying for the protection. So, yeah, that's good. So, that's my roundup for today. Hopefully, we get to discuss this a bit more. But I think this is a very, very real, necessary topic in this time. It's needed for us to talk about these things and help each other understand, because it's really, I think it's the one thing, well, out of many things, that inhibits and limits us from developing those wholesome, healthy relationships that we all want so much. Some people just don't know why they cannot commit to other people. Some people just don't know why they enter a good relationship and they sabotage it. Soul ties.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, guys, I think with that being said, we have come to the end of our session this evening. And once again, for those of you that have never been a part of the Singles Connect community, we welcome you. We thank you for spending another evening with us. Go ahead, guys, like the page, subscribe, follow us on our social media platform, and Instagram is the same across the board. Singles Connect community. Leave a comment. Let us know what your thoughts are, what you would like to see us discuss, how you feel about the conversation. And by just subscribing and liking the episode, guys, that's how you let other people know about the community and about the page. And I think Dr. OJ is onto something that's on our next discussion. We probably want to pick up, session two of this topic, because there's so much more left to. We have more to say than we have time to give tonight, basically. But again, guys, I said thank you for joining us, and I guess we will see you guys on the next episode. And you guys have a wonderful evening and enjoy your Valentine's weekend. Even though we are not a fan of the commercialized days, I'm just saying.
Okay,
But either
well,
way, enjoy. We're
we're
not
not a
hating, though.
fan.
I promise
No,
you,
no,
it's
but Stacy, while we're not a fan, my love language is gifts. Please, I love to
not.
receive gifts. Like
Yeah.
seriously, my love language.
Ah,
If,
you're
if you
Receive
don't
you're
have
gifts.
the
you're
love best,
hilarious,
get
Dr.
you.
OJ. What you listen? Your love language is give. Trust me, sweetheart. Will it give you give three hundred
So
and
my
sixty-five times
exactly.
a
So my
year? I
significant
am
other needs to
just.
come with the gifts all the time, not just on Valentine's and birthdays and Christmas. Like I love, like Another episode, guys. Have a good
Have a good night,
Well,
ladies.
see, that's why it's good for you to let people know what exactly the language you speak. See, this
Yeah.
is why communication, guys, is important. Because see, she's just now verbalizing this. How are we supposed to be over here? There are good people here to read her mind to know she needs gift other than just Christmas
so
and
yeah,
birthday.
so y'all can talk about commercialization all you want. Some of us, that is what feeds our soul.
I
So
know. That's what I say. I say, Stacy,
mm,
don't let the lovebirds hear you because I know Dr. lost Valentine.
while
Alrighty.
I don't really subscribe to the Valentine over exaggerated expressions of love. Let's do it every day. Let's make it a norm. Let's normalize just expressing giving to one another. I feel like when a person loves you, I think the next inclination, regardless of what your love language is, you guys can testify to this. When a person loves you or when you love someone, the next inclination is you want to give to them.
Mm.
Hmm. I
Because
posted that on our page today. That one to me, one of the key things to know of whether or not somebody is sees you and is in tune with
mhm,
you is consideration.
mhm,
When you consider that person's thoughts, you consider the decision that I'm making, how is it going to affect this person? Or just consider even just saying, picking up the phone and say, hey, how is your day going? I'm just thinking about you. Or did you eat today? Or something like that. It goes a long way. But,
exactly.
you know,
All
All
right,
right,
guys.
guys.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, ladies.
good
Bye.
night.